let's not kid ourselves. If you have come to this video, you already know what this video is. You have already seen other people reply to it. I have too. I just have some other observations as well, and tend to have a bit of a different view. So let's just get started.
The worldview discussions space can be so combative. And when atheists and Christians come up with lists of questions that they don't think the other side can answer, those questions usually aren't genuine.
He starts this off as if this is about a worldview discussion, but then makes a video about more Christian versus atheist questions. Atheism isn't a worldview. It's the answer 0 to the question, how many gods do you believe in? I would argue that Christianity isn't even a worldview. Are you going to tell me that a young earth, flat earther Christian has the same worldview as a Christian who only believes that God is the source of the Big Bang? From the start, the wording is sloppy.
I've never made a list like that, although I've responded to some. Here, I hope my atheist interlocutors will consider these questions deeply without giving glib answers. These aren't meant to be gotcha questions, though I'm not asking for no reason. I expect you will have answers, and I want to hear what the most sincere among you have to say.
So this is the part that made me want to make my own video. I want to know what the most sincere amongst you have to say. What's the insinuation there? I'm normally not one for reading more into words than the words themselves. Unless I actually say that you're an idiot, I did not call you an idiot. But I can't help it. A plain reading of the words, I want to know what the most sincere amongst you have to say, seem to suggest only a small percentage is sincere. And even without that reading, it's a backdoor. You don't like the answer someone gives? That's okay. You can ignore their answers by simply branding them as not one of the sincere ones. Why would an honest person build a way into the intro to ignore answers to the questions they're about to ask?
With that, here are my 10 questions for atheists. What facts about reality that you and I agree are real facts about the way the world is, does your worldview account for, but my Christianity doesn't account for, or at least doesn't account for well?
Well, since I have no clue what you believe in, I can't say what we both agree on. Do we agree the world is pretty fucking old? Or do you think it's only a couple thousand? Let's also look what account for means. Pulled off Google, best fitting version would be definition 1, the second point. Provide or serve as a satisfactory explanation or reason for. This asks for why something happened. Let's account for why DNA twists the way it does. Because it is made in the image of the flying spaghetti monster. If I understand correctly, this is accounting for why DNA twists. As you can probably guess, I don't care for your accounting of things. I care for how we can know your account to be accurate to reality.
And for those of you that would point out atheism isn't a worldview, I'm talking about you, your worldview that includes atheism.
How can a worldview include atheism when atheism is not theism? And since you didn't lay out your worldview, I can't say where we agree. Do we agree that the Bible isn't internally consistent? If yes, then I think I can probably have a more accurate hypothesis on why that is than you. But here too, he seems to have built in a back way out of this question. If I want to point something out where his worldview doesn't account as well as mine, then he can simply say that we don't really agree on that fact about reality. That's now the intro and the first question that have an out built in for any answer he doesn't like.
I can't think of any. Christianity accounts for evil, suffering, the existence of other religions, including supernatural events in those other religions, science, and differences among different denominations of Christianity.
Care to justify your claim that your Christianity can explain all that? Because I would love to see you try. Any links to where you lay those explanations out for us to look through? No? No links? No justification here? Just the assertion that Christianity can explain it. I don't care much for unsupported assertions.
But I can think of many things that the most common worldviews that include atheism don't answer as well as I think Christianity does. Like universal supernatural claims, universal religious experiences.
The human brain is one hell of a drug. Seriously though, the brain will do some weird stuff. Look into that, and supernatural claims seem pretty easy to explain very soon.
Free will.
You said these were things we had to agree on. Give me some evidence for free will first. Because currently, that just looks like another baseless assertion to me.
Morality.
Morality is a human idea. Human ideas come from the brain. Show me that morality is a thing and not just a human idea, and my worldview may be lacking. But no one so far has been able to. And I've been annoying people with this question for evidence of morality for a long time.
Near-death experiences.
The human brain is one hell of a drug. A human brain deprived of oxygen, which I feel safe in saying is the case in 99% of deaths, as you only die when your brain is sufficiently damaged. And unless you take direct damage to the brain, it dies first of lacking oxygen. When the human brain is deprived of oxygen, it starts doing weird shit. It tries to keep itself alive, but also can't function properly. Obviously, it's going to do some weird shit. This explains near-death experiences pretty easily.
Beauty.
And we're back to human ideas. Beauty doesn't exist. It's once more just a human idea. Show me evidence beauty exists, and my worldview would be insufficient. Without that, you just have more baseless assertions of things that exist.
The rapid expansion of the early church.
Counter-argument: the rapid expansion of the Flat Earth Society.
The events surrounding the life and death of Jesus of Nazareth.
First provide evidence that he as a singular being existed. Then provide evidence that he did the things people say he did. Then my worldview may be lacking. Until then, you still have nothing but baseless assertions.
And our shared longing for purpose and meaning.
I don't have a longing for purpose and meaning. All the other points, I'll say that I'm not convinced of your claims. But your claim that we share a longing for purpose and meaning, I'll say is false. The others, I lack belief in. This one, I believe not in. You say I have something I don't have. Here, you are just wrong. And that you are just spewing out things you think we all agree on, when I agree on maybe 3. See near all others as baseless assertions and know the last one to be false. This doesn't help in you appearing believable.
So what is it that Christianity doesn't answer as well as your worldview?
My worldview answers one variation of questions a whole lot better than yours. Citation, please.
If your definition of atheism is merely that it's a lack of belief in God and you're just waiting to be convinced, but then you speak of him as though he's in some way synonymous with Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, or fairies, doesn't that at least send the message to your listeners that you actually believe that there is no God?
I am a pedantic asshole. I lack belief in a God because I've seen no conclusive evidence a God doesn't exist. I have good reasons to believe the God of the presented Christianity doesn't exist, but a God could exist. And since I don't have conclusive evidence that no variation of the Christian God exists, I also don't hold as true that no variation of the Christian God exists. In the same way, I don't have conclusive evidence that no variation of Santa exists. And so, I lack belief in Santa. I lack just as much belief in the Christian God as I do in Santa.
After all, these are entities and beings that you likely believe do not exist.
False. I don't have the positive belief all the entities don't exist. I have the null position.
And if your response is that you merely lack a belief in Santa Claus and don't actively believe that he does not exist, doesn't that sound a little disingenuous, honestly?
Oh! So now me being precise in wording is being rebranded as dishonest. Yeah, when I'm trying to have an honest discussion with other people, I also try to brand them as dishonest. Can you see why I don't like this video? And why I felt the need to make my own response, actually talking about how this video may claim to come from an honest place, but doesn't actually seem to actually be that? Am I seeing things that aren't here? Absolutely possible. But I'm seeing it. And I don't see a lot of intentions.
When atheism becomes a part of someone's worldview, they typically change their positions on other issues like abortion, sexual morality, and a number of other things. I actually have several videos of well-known atheists saying that there's nothing wrong with prostitution, that they hope their children don't save themselves until marriage, and that sex workers should be put up on a pedestal no different than the military. I didn't use those here because I didn't want to seem combative to individuals, specifically the individuals who made those statements.
Wait, any of those were supposed to be a bad thing? People change positions when they leave a religion that forces political positions on people. You can call it moral all you want, but really it's just political. And they start to think and figure out their position for themselves. This shouldn't be a surprise, this is expected. Abortion. You have the right to your own body. Obviously, no other person can lay claim to it. Obviously, you have the right to stop a person that tries to do so. Sexual morality. Like what? Homosexual sex? Obviously, people should be allowed to love one another. Deviant sex acts? Obvious people should be allowed to have fun together if no one is being unconsensually harmed. I really have no clue what sexual morality could be. What's wrong with prostitution? If I can hire out my body for hard manual labor, from which the outcome could be a brick wall if I work in construction, or a fitter body for the person who hired me if I'm a personal trainer, why should I not be allowed to hire out my body for hard manual labor from which the outcome is an orgasm? Wait until marriage to find out you are sexually incompatible. Great idea. Why even get married to begin with? Sex workers on a pedestal, just like the military. Now, this one I would call bad, but not for the reason he would agree with. Sex workers do work. The military is also training for non-consensual killing. Sex workers deserve the same respect anyone does that works. The military doesn't appear to deserve any respect. I am someone who would make those statements. I can justify why I would make those statements. Can you?
But even if you didn't become an atheist just so you could sin,
Even if you didn't become an atheist just so you could sin? An atheist is the only person who can't sin. Christians can sin. Muslims can sin. Atheists can't. Sin is going against the will of a God. No God, no sin. If I wanted to sin, I would first have to start to believe in a God with a will. And really, you wish to present yourself as sincere, but you say shit like, even if you didn't become an atheist just so you could sin. Looks like you just revealed your hand. You seem to believe atheists are atheists because they want to sin, not because of intellectual reasons. I feel confident in saying you aren't interested in a discussion, because you from the start seem to assume any interlocutor is not intellectually honest.
but even if you didn't become an atheist just so you could sin, and I believe you, do you at least understand why those moves could send that message to people who might say that to you?
People could take that message if they don't care to see the reason why I hold the positions that I hold. I can explain and justify my positions. Can you?
If it's a lack of belief sort of atheism, what is it? Is it 50-50, 60-40, 75-25?
What the fuck are you asking? I lack belief in your claim for a god. Do you ever believe in any gods? No. There is no percentage. I've been presented with a claim. I didn't think the claim represents reality.
And at what point do you feel disingenuous saying that you merely lack a belief, as opposed to leaning towards, I believe that God does not exist?
I would say that I believe a god does not exist when I have been presented with evidence that a god does not exist. Until such a time, I lack belief in gods. How likely I find it that I'll believe one day has no relation to this. This appears to be a question that wants to push atheists towards making a positive claim, because then they have something to debunk instead of being debunked themselves. But that part is speculation.
Now, I know we've all got our talking points, but I want you to struggle to be as sincere with yourself as you can right now.
And more talking about atheists being insincere. You want me to think this video was made in good faith? I don't get why other atheists have been so nice to this twat.
Doesn't it bother you a little bit that when we come to talk about the origins of the universe, and if there's a multiverse, the origin of that too, that the only real options you've got besides God is a past infinite universe, which is impossible, or the universe coming to exist uncaused out of nothing, or something far less clear than even those?
Don't you mind you don't know everything? No. And even if I did, I care more about being justified in my claims over just having a claim. We don't know how the universe started. None of us do. Even if you claim you do, you clearly can't show it to be true. A good while ago, I could ask the question, doesn't it bother you don't know how lightning forms? And that the only options, other than 4, are parts of the sun falling through the clouds, or something much less clear than that. to answer your question, no. The God of the gaps is not convincing. Also, give me evidence that a past infinite universe is impossible. Because, like this, it's just another baseless assertion.
It seems that for any worldview that includes atheism, there's a massive blind spot when it comes to the origin of the universe. And all the attempts to try and circumvent that problem seem desperate and at least far less likely than theism.
My fucking god, the loaded language. Blind spot. Circumvent. Desperate. And you're interested in a discussion? Yeah, citation needed for that extraordinary claim. Also, less likely than theism? How have you calculated the odds? Or is it simply what feels like the case? Yeah, and a metal ball feels like it should fall faster than a feather. But in a vacuum, they fall equally fast. Because intuition is wired for survival, not accuracy.
My question isn't just what do you typically say about this, because I'm well aware of the responses. My question is simply this: when you step away from the debate mode that it's so easy for us all to get into online, doesn't this issue destabilize you a little bit? It seems to fit really poorly with any worldview that includes atheism.
No, I'm not destabilized by not knowing something. And even if I was, it wouldn't be relevant. I don't have evidence for how the universe started. To make up an answer would be dishonest. I try to avoid being dishonest. Learning you don't know everything is step 1 to learning anything. If you think you have the answers to everything, how can you learn anything?
Of the arguments for God's existence, is there one that to you seems more interesting than the rest? Is there one that for you actually does weigh in favor of theism? Which one?
No, none. If there was an argument that made me weigh in favor of theism, I would be a theist. I lack belief in gods because no claim or argument has been convincing. If there was an argument I found convincing, I would be convinced. I'm an atheist because none of them have been.
Most atheists I've met humbly admit that they don't think they can have absolute certainty about much of anything. But what they want from the Christian is a demonstration that God exists or that Christianity is true.
Is this going to be you not understanding the burden of proof? If I claim I own a car, you could not be convinced. I appear way too young or incapable of owning a car. I could show you the keys, show you the car, and drive you around in the car for a bit. This would not be absolute knowledge that I own a car. For all you know, I simply pickpocketed the car keys from someone on the street. You would not have absolute knowledge. But I would probably have met your burden of proof that I own a car. No theist has met my or the scientific burden of proof that a God exists.
Well, when we offer the reasons to believe that we do have, those are typically deemed not good enough.
Yes, because those arguments tend to be fallacious or just not mutually exclusive to God. Look at the trees is a common example. Sure, it could be evidence for God. It's just not exclusively evidence for God, and thus not convincing.
So what sort of evidence, if any, would be enough to convince you? Do you know?
I don't know what would convince me. It would probably be something like a good definition of a god so I know what we're talking about. An experiment of sorts, that would falsify the existence of that God. The experiment not successfully falsifying that God.
And since it's often a conversation stopper, let's take experimental reproducibility off the table, since that's not even always necessary for science.
No, I am not going to take experimental reproducibility off the table. Experiment is how we figure out what is and isn't in reality. Reproducibility is how we remove abnormalities like a faulty wire or whatever the fuck. I don't become convinced that prayer can turn the light off if it got turned off once lightning struck. We try to reproduce experiments so we know it wasn't just chance. And what science doesn't require experimental reproducibility? Science that looks at the past can still repeat tests and reread and re-evaluate historical documents. That's the end of the question, by the way. The question effectively was, what would convince you you're not allowed to ask for evidence? Then nothing, because I'm convinced by good evidence, not baseless assertion or chance.
To what extent did social and moral issues start you down the path toward your atheism?
Not. I became an atheist because I knew the Bible was real and I knew evolution was real. One day, while walking on the dike near school, I realized that evolution and the Bible were in conflict. I had seen evidence for evolution, so the Bible was false. So God didn't exist. Overly hasty? Absolutely. Give me some slack, I was like 9. After that, I needed evidence to once more be convinced of the existence of a God. No good evidence was ever presented. No moral or political issue ever came into it. But this is just going to be like question 3. More, you just want to sin, isn't it?
That is to say, the typical Christian or religious views on sexuality, gender, rights, and acts and commands of God in the Old Testament. It seems that many deconversion stories online begin with, or at least include, LGBT issues, purity culture, or hell as instrumental in the deconversion process.
Well, yes. Homophobia, sexism, dehumanization, and fearmongering are things that many people intrinsically oppose. When your religion is promoting all those things, that can very easily lead you to question parts of your religion. And like Pringles, once you take one, you can't stop. Once you start questioning your religion, where do you stop? The converted atheists, with some regularity, get to the question, does God even exist? And come to the conclusion, I have no reason to think so. These are the barbaric issues that start the questioning. But I don't think it's a reason for people to stop believing, even if you desperately want it to be so.
It strikes me that what should matter most is the truth and not what we might prefer that the truth were. I honestly wonder how much those issues and ones like them motivate the deconversion rather than all this talk about evidence.
And I already explained that it's the dissonance between what the religion promotes and what one feels to be the right thing to do that starts one on the path of questioning the religion. My dissonance was between reality and stories. For many others, it's a dissonance between what they feel they should do and what they are told they should do. Questioning what you are told doesn't change your beliefs. Questioning your beliefs can change your beliefs. And questioning parts of your religion is a great gateway to question other parts of your religion.
Can you name the last 3 academic books you read by theists on the subject? How long ago did you read them? Or is most of your understanding of apologetics and atheism from non-scholarly internet sources, pop-level books, and, let's face it, YouTube videos?
I haven't read scholarly works. Why would I need to? People make claims. I am unconvinced of these claims. I'm unconvinced on the claims about Santa Claus. Yet you wouldn't argue that I should accept that he exists. I have not read anything from a flat earther. Yet you wouldn't argue that I should accept that the world is flat. In the same measure, I have not read scholarly works on theism. And if you wish to argue that I should accept the claims because of that, then you must accept that you hold a double standard.
And be honest with yourself about this. Anyone can Google up a list of books and paste them in the comments section. But I want to know, are you getting the best from the other side?
Did you need to read the best about any and every other religion before you didn't accept their claims? Did you read the best Hellenistic works before you stopped believing in Athena? I didn't think so.
Let's finish with a pretty common one. If you found out today, to your satisfaction, that Christianity were true.
Hold up. What the fuck does it mean for Christianity to be true? That a Jesus existed? That he did miracles? That there is some God? That the Bible was inspired by this God? That the Bible was written by this God? That Jesus was the adopted son of a God? That Jesus was the literal Son of God? That heaven exists? That hell exists? That purgatory exists? That Jesus died so we could go to heaven? That only by calling Jesus our Lord can we go to heaven? That this is a just system? Christianity isn't one solid thing. Christianity is true is not a clear statement.
Would you accept God's authority, repent of your sins, and trust Jesus as your king?
You see, to answer this question, I need many of my previous questions answered first. If it's just that some God exists, then no. Why the fuck would I care about some God? If it's that only for Jesus can I get into heaven and otherwise I'm going to hell? Probably still not. It would be a vile system set up by a vile God. A vile God who condemns good things without justification. If this God is all-knowing, I could pretend to follow this God's rules. But he would see that I have nothing but hatred for his vile existence. If I become convinced that this is a just system, if that's the case, then I'm no longer me. My morality would be gone, my thinking would be gone. All that makes me would be erased. To call the person who then inhabits my body the same person as I am today would be an insult to me now, and probably an insult to them then. And I can't speak for what another person would do. Can you see why this video is so bad? It pretends it's sincere. Like it's interested in the answer. But the questions are loaded, the questions are bad, the questions are vague. It's preaching to the choir that atheists just want to sin. And he doesn't have to worry about my response. All he has to do, after all, is simply claim that I'm one of the probably many insincere ones. This video is bad and undeserving of the irrespectful tone that many atheist creators gave it. This has been Phoenix, saying farewell.